Health and wellness are more than a destination. They are a process and a journey of personal choice. Come hear from people out in the field, doing the work, bringing health and wellness to many.
So today I have the honor of and the privilege of interviewing Karen Kelleher. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. You have so many certifications in quantum technologies. That is so exciting. And you're soon to be a Doctor of Natural Medicine. That is quite a journey also. I'm so excited to hear about your story, Karen, and how you're helping so many people. It's amazing. First of all, I'd love to start by asking you a little bit about your journey. What has brought you to this present moment?
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Kathleen. I appreciate it. And I'm honored to be in your presence. I'm excited to do this interview with you. So going back to my journey, I was actually working in high technology at the end of the 80s, and I was in operations. I worked there for about 14 years. So I was a single mother, went to school full time at night, got my business degree, BSBA, and I just came back from work one day. I was making great money. And I thought, I'm not helping anybody. I just felt this need that I wanted to help people. I didn't know what that was, what it meant. I just felt like I wasn't satisfied. And so there was a massage therapy school in the town that I was currently living in at that time. And so I decided to sign up to go to the massage school and thought, well, I always like to touch people, massage them. So why don't I try to see if I could do that for a career? And I did sign up for the class, and I got laid off right before it started. And the first day, and I think I mentioned this to you before, was 9/11. So yeah, so here's the first day of my massage school. I'm laid off from my regular job. Yeah, so 9/11 happens, and we just kind of talked in the class, and everybody obviously was sad, and it was an awful time. And so they let us go early that day. But even once I became a massage therapist, I just felt that wasn't enough. So I was interested in potentially doing microscopy. And that's a study of dried and live blood where you prick your finger, look under a microscope. And I had gone to a party where somebody had come up from the Cape, and she was doing that for people, and I had it done, and she kind of yelled out embarrassingly, "You have the worst case of parasites and metals." I was like, "Oh, great. Everybody knows that now." And at the time, I was just beginning the journey in health. I was in the business world. I was working on, with computers. And so I didn't know a lot, and I didn't know, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Go to the doctor and say I have parasites and metals? He's going to think I'm crazy. At the time, somebody else was saying, why don't you do quantum biofeedback? And again, this is, 2004 at the time. So it's a long time ago. So when that happened, I also talked to somebody that did the quantum biofeedback, and she could not only, see that there was parasites in metals, but she also treated them. And I did know that I had parasites. So I thought, okay, do I want to do something that can just give somebody information, or do I want to do something that really can help people? And so that's when I did the quantum biofeedback training, got the equipment, and started working with that. I also started doing my master's in natural medicine. I also, with a friend of mine that got very sick with breast cancer, thought about, as I was learning these things, I was like, we can do things with diet. We can look at the toxicity levels. And I was just getting a whole new awareness of really what is going on. One of my first classes was cancer and politics. And at first I thought, what is that? I didn't have any connection as to what even that meant. And then I realized there is a lot, that is going on that we are being exposed to. So that kind of started my journey too on the thermography. But I'm in the process right now of getting my PhD in natural medicine. And I'm just kind of thinking right now, what topic am I going to do that on? I'm still on that journey and path.
That's wonderful. I think it's so interesting that often on our journey, we can never connect the dots forward, right? So you had this critical moment where you meet this person. This often happens to us, and they're showing you something which you had never seen. So you never knew that we could have parasites or that we could carry heavy metals, and that could interfere with cellular communication, right? That's the thing. So when you got that cleared from your body, first of all, how did that feel? Did you notice the difference in your health?
I did notice a difference. And one of the things with the quantum biofeedback I noticed too was at the time, I was dealing with a lot of dental issues. I had had one root canal at the time. I didn't know too much about them, but I had had one and I'd gone to the dentist, done the x rays. Your teeth are great. And then the next week, it was like I was in so much pain with that root canal that the tooth ended up having to be pulled. And then it was like 2 weeks later, it was another tooth that, I needed a root canal, another one, and it was crazy. The dentist felt so bad for me. And then it wasn't until when I started working with the quantum biofeedback, it seemed to be like that stopped. So not only like clearing of the parasites, but also general health and dental health was profound for me. And so, at the time I was telling my dentist, oh, look at, we can do all this. And he was funny. One time he came back to me, and this was probably 10 years ago. He had a dental magazine that talked about quantum energy and the future. And, he's like, look, this is what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, it's here. But back then, that was, gosh, 17, 18 years ago, people weren't talking about the quantum realm, quantum energy. So it was like, oh, this is all coming, in the future.
So how would you describe quantum like this biotech you were working with, this biofeedback machine?
So the biofeedback machine that I've been working with all these years is approved by the FDA for pain management and stress relief. There is an insurance code that can be used if you are a doctor, and it has been used in hospitals. I think I'm not sure exactly which one, but they've done a lot of work with different protocols, even with, smoking cessation, things like that. But I typically work with people just on general health issues to see what is causing stress in the body. And that's what we're really looking at is, it's going to look at the organs. It's going to look at, chakras and auras and the spine and past traumas and pathogens.
Yeah, it's holistic, this machine. That's really interesting. I didn't even know that. So this quantum system is working body, it's evaluating the body, mind, and spirit. And it can see the imbalances and where there's blockages, right? Which we would say is energetic blockages. So how does it heal them?
So it's biofeedback. So what it's doing is it's identifying something at the cellular level and sending a frequency to identify that, but it's also sending a frequency back to make a correction. So it's going the 3-minute test actually goes through those 10,000 test matrix items to see what someone's reacting to. And then it sends frequencies back the whole session to make those corrections. And what I typically will look at during the session is what are the top stressed organs? What are the top risk factors? What are the top emotions? We can go into past traumas, balancing out the chakras, the auras. Traditional Chinese medicine is loaded. So we're looking at, is there any imbalances in the meridians? It's really looking at the whole body and trying to help the body heal itself is really what it's about.
So in the end, it's giving a frequency back to neutralize the imbalance, right? When you say that sounds like what it's doing. That's so cool. Wow. I love that. So how would you, like you're getting this piece, what is natural medicine? For all of those who are listening, they might not know what this is. And that's different than naturopathy, right? Medicine.
Right.
And it's also different than functional medicine, but they're all kind of dealing with holistic perspectives.
Right. And when we think about it, allopathy, which is the medicine that we have today, or if you want to call it traditional medicine, that's covered by insurance, that's new. Homeopathy, naturopathy, people have been healing their families with herbs for years. And look at the Indians and other, Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine. It's not new. It's just we've been so conditioned that, oh, we need a drug, or this is going to help us, or we need to go to the doctor for something, versus in the past we would look to our family members and say, oh, take this and you're going to feel a lot better. And now we've kind of come away from that, but I'm seeing that actually come back where people are, what can I do to help myself without, taking a medication that might, cause a chain of reactions that could make things actually worse.
That's so interesting. You're so right. Because it was in the 1880s that things got started getting more regulated and they started taking natural medicine out. But I think so, it's a little bit different. Natural medicine, how would you define it in general?
I think it's looking at the body as a whole and not just the symptom. Understanding, okay, where the imbalance is. I mean, our body wants to be healthy, right? And disease, to me, it's just a name that man has put on something, that the body is out of balance. It's not in homeostasis. And so I think with more natural medicine, the way that I look at it is we're really looking at the body as a whole. Are there toxins? Are there past traumas that are affecting you? There's so many different things that affect our overall health, and so what we need to do is really look at the big picture of what is it? How can we help ourselves?
It's like
Uh,
a onion, right, Karen?
yeah,
Where
it's like peeling
sort of,
exactly.
yeah, it's so when you look at natural medicine, you're looking at all those areas, body, mind, and spirit, it sounds
Yeah.
like, and you're looking at which one is disturbing the most, needs attention now. Then you go to the next level and the next level. And then eventually you get to the real cause, maybe the core, right? It's like a lot of layers on a core versus what we do with I'm a nurse, so I know medicine pretty well. What we do in the mainstream medicine till these last couple hundreds of years, we've been really focused on just alleviating symptoms. It hasn't been till recently that we start to go, okay, we identify a problem, can we really get rid of it? And when I worked with cancer, the doctors would say, well, they never said you're completely cured. They would say, okay, we're going to do these things, and there's a chance that in 5 years you'll be still here, or there's a chance, and after 5 years you consider it a cure, but you couldn't right away, right? So when you get someone with any label of cancer or autoimmune, like there's so many autoimmunes now, it's just what you're saying. I hear you saying it's a problem at the cell level of balance. So what you're doing with the biofeedback machine is you're just looking for what that imbalance is, what's showing up that needs attention now, and you start to identify that in a session. So how many sessions do people generally need for this kind of care?
So it depends. So really what we're looking at is having that awareness of really what is affecting us. And then the clients can take that information and say, okay, I'm going to make these changes, right? So there are certain protocols that we could do, say if somebody has something like attention issues, or I had somebody who didn't like the way she acted to somebody at work. So she came weekly for a couple of weeks and we worked through the neurolinguistic programming aspect of it. um but a lot of it is more of awareness of here's what might be causing stress in your body, and then let's make some changes and then see, even in the next month, what is it showing now, again peeling the onion, right? So that's where a lot of my clients have used it as a tool to see, okay, what is it? And if I start to see a lot of pathogens, that's where I might say, okay, maybe we need to do a biomagnetic pair therapy session. I might take that information and say, maybe you need to do an initial detox testing or a program for detoxing the body, whatever comes out of it. And even the emotional traumas, like being aware so they can try to release those.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying, so you mentioned a new technology. So I know you're very innovative, Karen. It's so exciting. And you've incorporated a lot of technologies. The big one I want to get to as soon as possible, but you mentioned now this other one. It's called the biomagnetic pair therapy. So can you
Correct.
explain what that is and how you became interested in that?
Sure. So I started to have a lot of clients come to me and say, have you heard of magnet therapy? I'm getting it done, or my friend is, and I didn't know anything about it. There was somebody locally that was doing that, and I did a presentation at their wellness center about the quantum biofeedback. And so one of the therapists wanted to trade with me. And at the time, I was dealing with mold issues, not only where I was living, but coming to find out that it was actually in my business. there was aspergillus in the HVAC system. So I had this chronic cough in 2019 before COVID. So what happened was she wanted to do the quantum biofeedback. And so she traded with me to do the magnets. And once she put the magnets on me and she muscle tested me to see what I was reacting to, that's when I would stop coughing and I was laying down. And I had such a chronic cough that every time I exhaled, now I have asthma, I wheeze and I would cough. It was miserable. You can't sleep, you can't function, it's hard to have a conversation. It was awful. And so after 4 sessions, and I went, I think every 3 weeks, and I was seeing a lung specialist, supposed to be on all these inhalers, it went away. And now it can get triggered by, certain things like pollen or too much sugar or something like that. But for the most part, it was not anything like it was. And when I was getting tests done, the doctors were like, "Oh, you're doing great." It's like, yeah, last week I would never have tested this way.
So what is this actually, a biomagnetic pair? They take magnets and they put it somewhere based on what?
Yeah. So there's a positive and negative magnet. And so it's been around for over 40 years, and it's kind of amazing that most of us have not heard about it. Dr. Goyes was really the main person that started with doing pair therapy back in the early 80s. And what he did was he took an AIDS patient and he took a negative magnet, put it all around the body until he saw where the right leg shortened or lengthened. So what we do is muscle testing. A lot of people look at muscle testing like, oh, lift your arm, ask the body a question. If it's weak and the body's reacting, it'll drop. For us, we have the client laying down, and then we're muscle testing by asking the body questions, and the right leg will shorten or lengthen if there could be a imbalance in that area that we're asking about. So now we have over 800, what they call 800 pairs. So it's the use of a positive and negative magnet. And really what we're doing is, say if there's something in the body, a pathogen, a parasite, it could be causing the body to be too acidic in that area, tissue or cells. And then the corresponding pair that goes to it could be causing it to be too alkaline. So what we're doing with the magnets is putting the positive negative magnet on to bring up the pH level in the body so that the body now can heal itself.
That is so cool. I've actually never heard of this. That's wonderful. Wow. And so you've been working with this for so many years now.
Just actually since 2020.
Okay, so not that long, but you've helped a lot of people just with that.
I have, yes. The last few years, especially.
I bet with COVID. So tell me a little bit about some other, you have a couple other technologies. The other one is the thermography. I have heard of that.
Yep. So when I was going through my master's in natural medicine, and my friend Lori, she was diagnosed at 32 with breast cancer, and she had a 4-year-old. So it was awful. And she didn't have any breast cancer in her family, never mind any cancer, never mind breast cancer. They just found it a fluke way where she was looking at a mole. She wanted to get her tubes tied and ended up getting a mammogram on both breasts, and finding deep inside, they found some, breast cancer. And so she had done she had a mastectomy, chemotherapy, radiation, cancer survivor for 5 years, and then unfortunately passed away at 39. So it had metastasized through her body. And shortly after, I had seen an advertisement, and again, this was probably like 15 years ago, about 10 years ago, if not more, about thermography. And I thought, gosh, if we could be testing women in a non-invasive way, because they determined that her cancer was growing in her mid-20s.
Yeah, sometimes it's slower growing and
yes,
sometimes it's fast, but it's always over a number of years.
Exactly. And so I thought, gosh, if we could be testing women at a young age, especially starting in their 20s, then maybe we can see if there's anything potential that's happening, because my understanding is that cancer could be 90%, 98% environmental. We have an opportunity to change the environment, to look at the lifestyle, look at the diet, look at, toxic levels, and make those changes. And come to find out, she had said that she grew up in Connecticut, and down the street, they played in this field that had a lot of barrels. And a lot of the kids she found out in that neighborhood were actually dying of kind of different cancers.
So it was like a toxic in the
barrel. So it seemed that it could have stemmed from that. We don't know, obviously, but it for her to find that out. She just kind of felt like, oh, maybe it had something to do when, we were younger.
Sometimes it's very hard to face the reality of how toxic the world has become. But on the other hand, we have to have hope that with these kind of technologies coming and with other things coming, we will be in a new world soon, right?
Correct.
I think that's very much, that's how I look at things now. But it is very overwhelming, the amount of toxicity. So that is very interesting that you found that as a potential, as a problem for her, I can imagine, and that she couldn't get this help. So then you decided, when you researched this thermography, that it could be helping a lot of people to prevent, right? To really prevent.
Yeah, and just have an awareness. So it's a non-invasive way to track the health of the breast. It's been approved as an adjunct to mammography since 1982. So it's when we think about the way that women are, the early detection with mammograms, what is it now? They pushed it out in the US, I think, even into the 40s and 50s. That's not early detection when a lot of the cancers are growing in the 20s and 30s. But what they found too is that the more you radiate dense breast tissue, the more chances of getting breast cancer. So it's unfortunate that it isn't covered by insurance. It is paid out of pocket expense, but it's a healthy way to actually look at the health of the breast. We're not diagnosing breast cancer, just like a mammogram doesn't, a biopsy does. But what we're really doing is looking at the risk rating. Is there a higher or lower risk rating that there could be a potential of something going on? And sometimes it can be a hormone imbalance, lymphatic issues. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's breast cancer, but it's something that could lead to breast cancer in the future.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. And what about, okay, let's go into the big one that you found. It's called the EES system. So it's the Energy Enhancement System. This is a very kind of, I would say, from what I've heard, a very progressive therapy.
That's been around for over 20 years. Yes.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
How did you hear about it?
So about a year ago, apparently there was a video with Jason Shirka from Unified, and he did an interview with Dr. Sandra Michaels about this technology. And I didn't know anything about him at the time, but I started hearing from my clients in emails and phone calls, have you heard of the E-Systems? Have you heard of scalar technology? Are you going to get these units? And I was like, what is this? And at the time I hadn't watched the video, and I, called the company, nobody had called back, nobody answered. I didn't realize at the time that from that video, it just went crazy. And without having any centers in the US, like wellness centers such as myself, now there's over 100 within a year, and they're worldwide. So watched the video and I thought, well, this is kind of cool. And then I had some clients. There was some units up in Maine, up in Georgetown, Maine, which was 4 hours away. And so there was four of them going to go stay overnight, because you can do overnights in the system. One person backed out, so they asked me to go, and I thought, sure, I'll go. And it was amazing. Of course, I walked in and, here's these computer screens with the funky colors. And I thought, oh, this is kind of weird, but whatever. And I have to say, we were talking first, and then at around 10 o'clock, Meg, who the owner, she said, okay, guys, get your PJs on, brush your teeth, and we're going to put the meditation on. And I thought, gosh, we're going to be up all night. We're all talkers. As soon as she put the meditation on, we passed out, all of us. And I'm a type of person, I can't sleep with light or any noise. Somebody was snoring, and I would just wake up and go back to sleep. And I probably had the best sleep I've ever had.
Wow.
And
How long were you there? How long?
10 hours.
And with this machine?
Yeah, we were laying. So there was 12 units that she had, and so there was three screens in each of the corners, and so we were all sleeping in the middle. She had mattresses that were down on the floor that we each slept on.
That's amazing. So these machines are like units of frequency, and I've seen them. They're kind of very colorful, and they seem to be moving in a certain rhythm, like almost like sacred geometry.
Right. So each screen has a it has a formula that's been put on there. So what happens is there's like the screen up here goes to the screen over here and vice versa, and they're all running in different frequencies and layers and levels. So she had 12 units, I have 16 units, and so we have 4 in each corner, and basically it's giving out scalar waves. And what the scalar waves are is, it can go through matter. And so really what it's doing is looking at, the DNA level it's working at the DNA level to kind of bring the body back into a state of balance. And it's been around for over 20 years. It just hasn't been to the general public like now it's getting out to.
Wonderful. So it also brings this rejuvenation or harmony, or like with the biofeedback machine, neutralizing toxicity and things that don't belong in the body.
Exactly. And so if you think about it, if you think about it as being our body a battery, right? We get depleted with the EMFs and toxins and all kinds of different exposures and emotional things. And so what this is doing is really giving the body the energy that it needs to fill up its battery. And so one of the things I felt, especially in the first session, was I just felt, and it's hard to explain, I felt like every single cell was vibrating.
Yeah,
It
like
just
happy.
Yes, it was happy, and it was just like I was like zing, and I had so much energy. It was crazy for like 3 days. And people were like, and I felt like I couldn't sleep. I just was like, I have so much energy, I don't know what to do. And but it just really, and it goes where it needs to go. So sometimes we have people come in and they might have pain in an area, but it's the body's going to know what to do with the energy and where it needs, some assistance.
So I have never experienced it. So one day I definitely will. That's so exciting, Karen. So you got to know it. You brought it in. How many of these systems do you need to in a clinic?
So all the studies, my understanding is that all the studies have been done on 4 and 8 units. So they have a cube, I think, that has like 8 units. There's some places that just have 8 units. We have 16, some have higher numbers, but all the studies have been done on 4 and 8.
So who is the inventor?
So Dr. Sandra Michaels is the inventor, and she has been, in the wellness field for over 40 years. And she also was, a teacher, and she had been creating this technology, and it just now is really coming out to the general public per se. But she's an amazing, amazing person.
So let's say I have an imbalance and I come there. I mean, we don't cure disease, right? It just helps the imbalance. What would that look like? I would come to your clinic. I would, not for like a whole night, right?
Well, I mean, some people want to, some people don't. So the minimum that Dr. Sandra Michaels recommends is 2 hours. So, and that just gives your body the ideal time to get into a meditative state. And we also have a meditation that she's done that really helps to put people out. I have some people come for 3 hours, 4 hours, and it's funny because people will come in and say, well, I'm going to try 3 hours or 2 hours, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I brought a book, and I walk in, just to kind of check on them, and they're passed out. They're so relaxed. It just seems like as soon as you're in the energy, your body just sucks it all in. It just takes it all in, and you just get into such a relaxed state. And then a lot of people are, come out almost kind of feeling euphoric sometimes for the first time. Like everybody's different with how they react, obviously, and what they need, but it just gives you this amazing feeling.
And so do people come back weekly, or how does that work?
Depending on what's going on with somebody. So we have somebody in particular that has a lot of posture issues and, isn't very well. And even the first day they did 2 hours. And the next day I got a call saying, he was mumbling and he wasn't talking clearly and he wasn't walking good. And the sister noticed, look he's not mumbling and he's walking better. So then she came, said, we need to get back in. And it happened to be the long weekend. So they came, they were coming every day up until this previous weekend. And the chiropractor, the doctor, everybody was noticing the changes in him. And so it really depends on what is going on with somebody, what are their health issues, to, how long you would come in or how often you would come in. Each session builds upon the next, so it's cumulative. And so if you do have some health issues, you want to come in, say even every other day for a period of time, or once a week, to get to the point where maybe it's once a month you're recharging your batteries.
So it doesn't have to, there's no formula. It's sort of like you just feel it. And you're also working with what you said, lifestyle, and you're looking at it as a holistic way, right? Habits.
Yeah, you have to. And that's, it's not just, oh, you're going to walk in here and feel great. It's, we have to look at, okay, what is your diet like? What are you eating? What are you exposed to? The last thing you want to do is, if you're exposed, this person happened to be somebody that, worked in a field where they might have had to deal with, mercury. So, and that could have been contributing to some of his health issues. And so it's looking at, okay, do you have, current exposures? Are you trying to detox? What are you doing to help yourself? Because it is a big picture. It's not just, going into a room and getting better.
Yeah, we always teach. I mean, I teach this, that you have to clean the body to be healthy, and you have to build it properly. So this seems to neutralize and rejuvenate the cells to make them vibrate how they should. But you probably also have to work with nutrition and also the emotions on some level also.
Yes, and what are you telling yourself? Because, I had somebody where they were saying, "Oh, well, he's not going to get better, or he's not going to have this." I'm like, "Don't say that, you've got to allow the body to be able to say, I can get better, and not have that, well, the doctors told me, this will never change." And so I try to really work with people, what are they saying, and doing visualization while they're in the room, you know visualize your posture being better, visualize,
Our thoughts
being,
matter. That's
yeah, it really does, it really does.
we are
So
creators,
getting
and
that awareness, don't say
yeah,
things.
yeah, exactly. We're creators and we're creating things on a very powerful level, even though we don't realize it. So that's very exciting. So what is, like, there have been a lot of scientific studies on this system, right?
Yes, there are. So you can actually go to the EE System website, and there's all kinds of studies that you can pull up, and they've done like even live blood analysis, like before and after. There's also been government agencies that have worked with this, and NASA, the technology with Dr. Sandra Michaels. So it's not just something, oh, let's put a bunch of screens out and see how somebody feels. It's really technical, and there are studies and resources behind it.
So Karen, when you're trying to find out what's wrong with someone, and you're trying to find out what toxins are there, or if their cells are not, if something's blocking the cells, I heard you describe another technology, which was hair analysis. Can you describe that?
Sure. So I have a device that's actually a German device. A lot of people think of hair analysis where they pull their hair, they put it in a bag, and they send it away to a lab, and they come back with a report that talks about the different metals. With this technology, it's really looking at, we're actually pulling the hair in the office. We're putting the root on this little device, and then what we're doing is looking at epigenetic factors, and is the body nutritionally balanced. We're looking at, is there toxins? Are they lacking antioxidants? Are they lacking certain vitamins or minerals, amino acids? It's also, the report is a really good comprehensive 36-page report that comes back within 15 minutes. And it's really looking at, what foods is the body lacking. It will also give you a list of foods that, to basically, it's like a 3-month program. Just try, stop eating these foods for, 90 days, and see, okay, are you experiencing any challenges, any differences in your digestion? It doesn't mean that you have allergies to this food. It might be something you never eat, or it could be based on epigenetics that maybe it wouldn't be good for you to eat, or it might be something you're eating all the time or consuming. And so it's really looking at, what are the top things that are going on in the body that the body nutritionally may be lacking or needing, and giving people, okay, here are some foods that you can eat to support the amino acids. Here's some foods you can eat to support the minerals that you need. Here's some foods that you can eat, for certain vitamins. So it's giving somebody a whole program that they can actually go through and say, okay, here's ways that I can be helped. Now, that's the general report. A lot of people right now are experiencing issues with their hair, especially since COVID, or it could be stress around the last couple of years with COVID. And so we have a report too that will be specific for hair, skin, and nails. And that's been amazing to look at and say, okay, what is lacking? Why is the body, why is the body shedding the hair? Why is the hair falling out? And what does it need to nutritionally to support it, to help it grow? And so we have specific reports for that, for the hair, skin, and nails, that will, tell, it'll be based on just that alone, what is lacking in the body for the hair and skin and nails.
Wow, how important is that? That sounds amazing. It's so exciting that we're entering this new age, right? And all these new technologies are now being revealed for the general person. And so for anyone out there who's listening, who says this is just too strange or too hard to believe from the education that I got on medicine and how things work, I would encourage you to try it. I think everything is about trying it. And, it's amazing what I've seen myself. And I never say never now. I was one of those, I'm not saying I was skeptical, but before I really understood when I was very young, I just didn't understand, and it's taken a long time. But now I never say I know everything. I always say, what more can I know? So I think this is very exciting, the work you're doing, and how you're so courageous, Karen, that you're willing to try things. I think that's remarkable. Now, you mentioned live blood analysis, which I am very familiar with because we have many practitioners in Holland. And look, we all go and we're used to going to the doctor, getting our blood drawn. Can you explain the difference between what that is and live blood analysis?
Sure. I am just in the process of training for that. So full circle. That's one of the reasons why I haven't done my thesis yet, is I really want to do the microscopy, the live and dried blood. So basically it's pricking the finger and looking under a dark field microscope at, at the state of the health of the red blood cells and the white blood cells. And one of the things for me that I feel is going to be important with doing my thesis, whatever I choose to do it on, is I have all these tools and I have all these therapies and things I can do. But at least if you draw the blood, say if you go into the EE systems or do the quantum biofeedback or magnets, and then you draw the blood and look at it again after, we see a tremendous change and a difference. So for some people, they don't know, they can't feel energy, some people say, but we all have it. We all have the capability, but to see yourself, here's what the blood is doing, is going to be amazing. And that's some centers are already doing that, like you said. Even in the work that you do, it's very important. So for me, that's why I'm going to now get into doing that.
Well, it is amazing because when I first saw it and the rouleau formation, which happens when your cells are not doing well, they get very sticky and they sort of look sticky, right? They clump together when they're not. So might happen with toxins, or it might happen with too much heavy emotions, dense energy, or it might happen also behind electronics, right? So when you see this rouleau, you're like, ooh, that doesn't look healthy, because when that's happening, then the cells can't do what they need to do. They can't release toxins and they can't even build properly, right? But suddenly, when you see them and it looks beautiful, what would you describe that blood like?
Well, it just, even people will notice, like, oh my gosh, that looks so much better. It's moving. It's the way that it's supposed to be. And so,
And the cells are very happy, right? They're
correct.
not
Yeah,
sticking together.
exactly. Because when they're clumping together, it's like, okay, that's not good. And then now you see them, flowing freely, or you see the white blood cells gobbling up the waste that they're supposed to be doing. It just said, okay, this is working. This is what's helping my body.
And think about, that's so interesting, if things are with all the clotting issues we're having, that is clumping, right? I mean, what is clumping? So I think that's very interesting to see that we have some power over what is happening to us. I mean, obviously, this is just one technology, but there are so many other things that the people can do. Like, what are some things that people could do, if just with lifestyle, that you've seen makes a huge change in their health and wellness?
Water. I can't tell you how many people I work with, and I'm like, well, how much water are you drinking? As you go through and you're asking them questions and trying to figure out their lifestyle. And I had one guy who drank just beer all day long, and then one person that was actually dealing with cancer, and he was drinking more coffee, and so even just that first step for me is, okay, what are you feeding your body? And understanding your body needs, that pure water. Our cells need it. In order for it needs it in the interstitial space, it needs it at the cellular level, not coffee, not, Coke or whatever else. And so that to me has been one of the first things I always talk to people about is how much water are you drinking? What are, it's like, oh, I'm drinking, this flavored water with sugar and this, okay, that's not water. So to me, that's like the elementary thing, but also looking at, are you eating a lot of processed foods? What are you putting on your body? They say women, have over 200 chemicals they put on their face just in the morning alone. And those chemicals cross the placenta. And it's like those babies are, they're inheriting not only metals of 3 generations, but they're also inheriting all the toxins. So, especially for someone trying to conceive, we have to really take a look at what is my lifestyle, you know?
What am I using? What am I eating? All the skin absorbs everything. So
And people don't
where am I
understand that.
living? Where am I
Right.
living? And then we get into the stress of our relationships and our careers and what we're doing, right? Because we're around negative people or we're around
Hmm.
negative, stressful environment. That has a huge effect, right?
Oh,
That is not a
definitely.
joke.
Definitely. And that's where it's really trying to look at people and look at the whole picture. Um, because, and you look at Louise Hayes, right? And the connections that she's made from emotional issues to different cancers or different conditions. And so to me, it's about educating. I started this path over 20 years ago, and I'm seeing actually younger kids now knowing what a chakra and aura is, and I didn't even know, till 10 years ago. So it's like, okay, you're starting to see that shift that it's becoming more, I don't want to say mainstream, but just an awareness of, even glyphosate and the toxins that we're being exposed to on a daily basis, and being aware, and to me it's about creating that awareness with my clients about, what state are you in at this point? How did you get there? And then, okay, let's move on from here. And what can we do to get the body into, a better wellness state, into homeostasis?
It's so interesting that you said that you were talking about that because one time I was eating grapes when I was very young, much younger, and I didn't realize the pesticides, right? I wasn't familiar, but grapes are the worst. I didn't realize that. So I was eating grapes. I was in this grape moment. And you can also be in a wine moment, not eating organic wine. I guess that's another, but I started to notice that I started having a skin outbreaks everywhere. And I was like, what's happening here? And then I made the connection. Oh, it's these grapes, Kathleen. So you have to wash them or not eat so much. You have to be very careful or get organic if possible. So it was like a thought. But I think sometimes we don't realize and we're just doing things. So it does help, of course, what we decide to buy, what farmers we decide to buy from. So all of that matters, right? We're starting to become much more conscious.
Right.
Well, I think it's so exciting, all these new technologies. Where do you see the future of mainstream medicine going with all these? They're almost, you could say, could be quite disruptive to the industry.
Yeah. So I feel, when we take a look back in history and look at, okay, where the chiropractors years ago were considered quacks, or, acupuncturists were considered quacks, even though traditional Chinese medicine has been around for ages. And so now those are covered by insurance, right? So what my hope is that as more and more people go to different therapists like myself or other natural doctors or naturopathic doctors, people are looking for answers right now, and they're looking for help. They're seeing that there's something that's lacking that they're not getting. And sometimes it isn't just a pill. Like, some people want that magic pill. I want to feel better. But then you look at what they're consuming, what they're doing, and sometimes people don't want to do that work, but there's a lot of people that do. And so I'm seeing the increase, like, think about me doing quantum biofeedback about 17 years ago. People were thinking I was crazy. I do these trade shows and people were intrigued and they were interested, but now it's just, oh, you do quantum, great. There's more acceptance. So what my hope is that with the more and more of these things, like the med beds and the EE systems, and like now there's a lot of red light therapy and all these other things that are coming out, and people are seeing relief. So they're feeling better. They're experiencing something that they might not have experienced before. And so with the sharing of that information and their experiences, it's going to, I feel, increase the industry. Because people aren't getting there, some people are not getting better with the way the current system is.
Yeah, so it's going to become more integrated. It really is. And that's what we're going to be looking at, an integrated system. It's not that everything's wrong with the mainstream
No,
medicine. It's that we need to take the best of that and the new stuff coming and make it possible. But I love what you said. You said that people are feeling a relief and they're feeling better than they have. And actually, we're meant to feel good. We're not
right.
meant to feel bad. We're not meant to wake up every day struggling. This is not how it's meant to be on earth. And this is how it has been. So I think it's I love being part of that new way of thinking, that there's hope and we can offer that. So tell me where you're located and exactly, and where your clinic and what the name of your clinic is.
Okay, so it's Boston Thermography Center, and I'm about 20 plus miles out of Boston, in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. So that's where we have our center, is in Chelmsford. So it's similar to, it's right on the kind of the New Hampshire border as well.
Perfect. And as you said, there's 100 of these in the United States, these kind of places you can go for this EE, Energy Enhancement System. So people
Correct.
can look it up. It's probably on her website, right? I'll put
Yep.
links below of all these places. I just want to end this interview by asking you where you see yourself in this whole thing in the future, this whole way we're going.
It's funny you asked that question, because I've been feeling since I've come into this realm of wellness that I'm always searching for more. And I thought, oh, once I got the E systems, it'll be great. That'll be it. I can, focus on everything else I do. But I feel that we have such a need for working with the lymphatic system, with women's hormones. I feel that there's such a need out there, and there's a hole. Like, even when I go to the doctor and I've said, to the gynecologist, I feel my hormones are off. He's like, what do you care? You're 52 at the time. I'm like, what? Like, but people are getting that, women are getting that message. And so I feel that I'm going to be constantly growing, constantly adding new things, constantly learning. And my goal really is to, I feel like, and kind of what you said earlier, people feel like they need to get sick and die. And I feel that we need to take that energy back and say, no, you can be well and be in your mid 80s and just go to sleep and not wake up. And that's what I want to happen to me. And
Yeah,
so,
I agree with you. Like, why should we get old and forget everything? This is horrible.
yeah, like, and why do we have to get sick? Why do people think that they have to get cancer or have to get a degenerative disease? And so what my goal really is bringing that energy and bringing it back to say, no, you've got the power. You can be well. There's, you don't have to be sick. Your body can be in ease. So my goal, I feel, in the future is to really get that message out and to help people be where they want to be, towards the end of their life. And why can't we be well?
I love how you said that. And I really
Thank you.
admire you and I admire your work. And you're really a pioneer, Karen.
Well,
It's
thank
so
you.
lovely. Yeah, I recognize you and I feel that energy myself. So I really appreciate you. And thank you so much for being willing to share all this with us today. We're so
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.